Alrighty, so today we're going to talk about FC Cincinnati in the season preview. So, I remember a couple of weeks ago when I talked about Cincinnati in the Moving Forward series episode, where it feels like this team is kind of running it back again heading into next year. They're pretty much bringing almost the same team, and they're hoping that this current core will be enough to get them over the hump. And I also mentioned the fact that it feels like this team is in the third year of the Philadelphia Union timeline of 2018 to 2023, where they're just kind of running it back and hope that eventually the score would work out, and that unlike the Union, they're hoping to do something different, and that of course is actually win MLS Cup. Now, when I also look at some of the transfer that they've done this off season, yes, in some way they are kind of running it back a little bit. I mean, you still have the main protagonists of this team in there, guys like Roman Salatano, Miles Robinson, and Matt Miazga, and then going forward, you still have Evander being the main playmaker, Kevin Danke, of course, being the main number nine. But there are also a couple of addition and subtraction that they are going to have this coming season. And when it comes to the depth itself, they definitely change a little bit of that by adding some more depth while letting go some of their depth pieces this off season as well. But that being said, last season they finished with a 25-9 record, which is good for 65 points. But they were eliminated in the second round by Inter Miami, and yeah, that is definitely not a game that Cincinnati fans want to remember. That was pretty much almost a no-show in that game, and just a devastating game after looked like they overcome the menace of Columbus in a big game in the Hell is Real Derby. Their last playoff appearance is 2025. Their last MLS Cup is never. That is something that they're looking to change. They've been building on this project for the past couple of years, and that, of course, is Pat Nolan and Chris Albright have been kind of changed the fortune of this team being from a laughing stock team to being a regular contender in the East. And while that, of course, is a great story to tell, eventually you're gonna have to show some resort. And in the case for Cincinnati, the frustrating part is that they haven't really kind of show that resort, and not to mention they still have yet to win a trophy in their franchise history as well, despite the fact that they have been having a great turnaround the last four seasons. But yeah, last year in 2025, they finished with a 25-9 record, finished with 65 points. I'm not quite sure why I wrote 52 points there. So ignore that. It's actually 65 points. They lost to Inter Miami in the second round. In 2024, they finished 18-5-11 and finished with 59 points, but they lost to NYCFC in the first round. And remember, in that 2024 season, they got off to a great start to the season, and then it just kind of gone downhill in the second half of the season. And that pretty much sums up in terms of them losing in the first round against NYCFC. In 2023, they finished 29-5 with 69 points, but they did lose to the Columbus Crew in the Eastern Conference Final, and to this day, that's kind of the stage that they want to get themselves back in. And of all the painful losses that they suffered in previous year, that is definitely going to go down as one of the most painful loss they've suffered, and probably the most painful loss that they suffer in franchise history. Before that, they finished with a 12-13-9 record, finished with 49 points. Keep in mind, this is the first year when Pat Nolan and Chris Albright took over this team and have really changed what this team is viewed, considered themselves to be a laughing stock in the first couple of years in the league. But they lost to the Philadelphia Union in the second round. But the highlight of them is the fact that they make the playoffs for the very first time in franchise history, and even win a playoff series for the first time in franchise history as well. Before that, it was nothing but disaster for this team. People forget that this team was considered to not only be a laughing stock in MLS, but they had some of the worst points though that an MLS team have ever had, and 2021 was definitely go down as that 4-8-22 with just 20 points to their name, and obviously did not make the playoffs whatsoever. And again, will go down as one of the worst MLS season that any team has had throughout the full season. Now, looking at some of the signings that they have, and again, as much as they are kind of bringing most of the gang back, they did make some interesting signing. One of them, of course, is bringing Brian Ramirez from LDU Quito. There's a lot of people that talks a lot of good things about him, so we'll see whether if that, of course, will be the case. They also brought in Christian Fletcher as well, and this feels like it's kind of a reclamation project for Cincinnati part, because Christian Fletcher, his potential have definitely not fulfilled when he was with DC United, and now him going to Cincinnati. And we've seen before where Cincinnati has kind of decided to claim some reclamation project and make them good again. And they're just hoping that's kind of this case with Christian Fletcher. And then they also got Cal Smith, the longtime Orlando City fullback from Cincinnati as well. It's going to be very strange seeing Cal Smith wear a different jersey than the purple of Orlando City. He's been there for pretty much in the entire career, and yeah, for Orlando City fans, I think they're kind of a little bit sad to see him go, but it just kind of almost felt like it was a ma- matter of time. Consider he not only fell down the depth chart, but it just feels like he's just not worth it in terms of re signing on the contract that he has. And then speaking of retread, they also brought back Tom Barlow into this team. So again, this team is famous for getting some retread. And last season I know they brought Corey Bear to the team. Didn't really quite work out so well. And now they bring Tom Barlow into this team. And Tom Barlow gets to play the Corey Bear role in terms of hoping that he can get some minutes. Imagine he actually fried with FC Cincinnati as well. That would be the biggest or at least one of the biggest story of the season. A guy that is kind of near meme level in terms of how he's been in the last couple of seasons, and now he's got a chance with Cincinnati. And then Felix Sampson, who's actually on loan with CF Montreal. We'll see whether or not if he can get some minutes with Cincinnati before they'll decide whether they'll purchase him outright from CF Montreal. Now, looking at some of the subtraction that they have, and they have some key subtraction. One of them is Lucas Orejano, who they sold the off this offseason cash in terms of that. That is definitely going to be a big of a loss. Though I will say that Orejano last season he did kind of had a bit of a down year compared to previous season, but still he is a big part of this team, and we'll see whether or not they can of course find the right replacement. Many people talk about how Brian Ramirez is that replacement, even though they don't really play in a similar role. And then they of course lost Yaya Kubo. This one hurts for Cincinnati fans because Yaya Kubo is really one of the last player on the Cincinnati team that's been with this team since day number one when they came into the league, and part of the old Cincinnati team that before the success that they had, they were kind of considered to be a laughing stock in the league, and they were really hoping that they can maybe re-sign him to another year, but unfortunately that was not meant to be. They also let go of Brad Smith, Alicon, who of course announced his retirement. They also let go of Kai Kamara, who I'm surprised Kai Kamara hasn't got a chance within MLS. I feel like teams should at least give Kai Kamara a chance. I know he is kind of near the twilight of his career, but he still can be a guy that can be a dangerous goal scorer, and that with him being the ultimate journeyman in MLS, I feel like eventually one of these MLS teams is going to pick him up off free agency. But the other big loss that they have this offseason besides Orejano is Brenner. They tried really hard to re-sign Brenner to a permanent deal from Udinese, but they just never really kind of got it done. They also tried to extend the loan as well, but just didn't quite happen. It also kind of doesn't help that they don't really have a lot of flexibility to try to bring Brenner back. So yeah, he's not once again no longer on this team. They also let go of Lucas Engel, who's now with RSL, and they also let go of Dominic Barchuk, who I believe is also now back with RSL as well. Now look at the first 5 games for Cincinnati. They start their first game at home against Atlanta United before going on the road to face against Minnesota. Then they return home to face against Toronto before go on the road to face against New England, and then they return home to face against Montreal. So pretty easy schedule, I would say, coming out of the game. There are a lot of teams that they're facing that did not make it to the playoffs. Minnesota is really the only team that they will have to face that made it to the playoff, and it's not going to be an easy one. Consider, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they'll deal with the cold Minnesota in February. Their last 5 games is an absolute murderous row. They have the Hell Israel Derby against Columbus on October 18th before going on the road to face against DC United, which is going to be the easiest match that they will have in this last 5 games, because after that it's Miami on the road. After that, then they play against the Union at home, and then they finish the season against Nashville SC. I mean, that is a really tough schedule. Like that, when you look at that schedule, literally 4 of the 5 team made it to the playoff. One of the team won MLS Cup. One of the team won Supporter Shield last year as well. So for the Cincinnati side, whenever I talk about a team when they have a tough schedule, it can work both ways. One, it could be a good early test when it comes to how you do in the playoffs, and if they can of course get these big wins down the stretch, not only give them some momentum heading into the playoffs, but now there's a real belief that this may be finally the season that they can of course get over the hump. But then it can also work against you, and this is where if they do go on a bad run of form in the second half of the season, like what we saw a couple of years ago, then when you face these games and you lose these kind of games, then all of a sudden the morale of this team is going to be low heading into the playoffs, and that if you can't beat some of the best team, especially near the end of the season, that you most likely will have to face them once they get into the playoffs. That's where the frustration once again comes from Cincinnati fans. The fact that I feel like for Cincinnati fans, they're kind of almost getting to the level where the regular season doesn't really matter for them anymore. It's all about what happened in the playoffs. The playoffs is a good measuring stick of whether or not if this team can have a successful season or not. Now, looking at the CONCACAF Champions Cup that they're also involving, they're going to be playing this Dominican team called OMM. Their first leg match is going to be on February 18th, and then their second leg match at home will be on February 25th. Looking at the strength of this team, when this team does have a full starting 11, yes, I think this is definitely considered to be one of the top starting 11 in this league. Yes, I know they did lose some key pieces in Orejano and Brenner, but you still have Evander there, and you still have Kevin Denke, who looked pretty good last season in his debut season as well. And now that if you're hoping that Brian Ramirez can add the dynamism of that attack as well, now all of a sudden you have a very good strong attack and the defense as well. As long as if both Miles Robinson and Matt Miazga can stay healthy, that's a really good solid back line that they have right now. The weakness of this team is obviously the depth and the chemistry. So one of the things I would say about the chemistry level is that last year, this team, as good as this team is, you kind of saw at times that they had a little bit of a disconnection, and maybe this is due to the fact that last year they changed the team a lot. They did go through a little bit of a remodel in terms of the current core, now that they have a full season to gel, and now they also have a preseason to deal with. Maybe that, of course, will turn into a little bit of a strength this season instead of being a weakness. But yeah, the chemistry and the cohesion, that is going to be a thing that I think Pat Nolan is really hoping his team can be better, and especially I think throughout this season, the other thing that they'll definitely needs to improve is the fact that they cannot just keep winning games by one goals. I mean, I know that's for a long time I said that's a Pat Nolan special, but if you want to look to be a dominant side in the Eastern Conference, you need to show that, and if you want to consider to be a top tier team, you need to show that you can of course dismantle team easily and not just have to squeeze out a one goal victory. And then of course the depth is always a weakness of this team. I know they did change the depth pieces and add some more depth, but there's no guarantee that the fact that the new depth that they got and the pieces that they got this offseason is going to be just as good as the previous one that they have. Now, free big question for this FC Cincinnati team. I mean, the first big question is really, can this team finally get over the hump? Like, is this roster going to be good enough? Is this court that Chris Albright built is going to be enough to face against some of the best team in the East? And the question of that is really an IDK right now, because when you look at the East of how good the East is, there's some really good teams out there. Do you think this team is better than what Inter Miami is right now? Do you also think that this team may be even better than Nashville or even their biggest rival, Columbus as well, that also has started to maybe get themselves much more healthier heading into this season and get a new head coach that seems like have winning pedigree? Can they can they be able to be better than them? That is definitely going to be a big question of this team, and I really don't have the right answer to that until they of course do face against those teams throughout the season. And then of course will they get more from their depth and their U22 guys? I think it's key the fact that they of course get more on their young guys. We know that the core pieces of this team can definitely perform, but the U22 guys last season, some of their young players that play in the that occupy the U22 initiative saw they were kind of a little underwhelming last season. They weren't performing as good as they are now. Some of them, of course, are new players that just came into the team. Guys like Samuel Giddy, he is one of those U22 guys that just came into the team. So I guess that when you have guys that came into this team and trying to learn the system. It does take time to learn it, and this is also where it goes back to the chemistry part of this team. The fact that when you bring in some new guys into this team, it does take a while for that chemistry and cohesion to go well. And now that they have a full preseason to deal with and sorted that out, maybe they'll of course will get more out of their U22 guys and also some of their depth pieces as well. They're hoping guys like Kyle Smith, Tom Barlow, even Christian Fletcher, guys that I think considered to be depth pieces, will be much better than some of the previous depth pieces that they have, and that is a big if because I think besides Kyle Smith, the verdict is still definitely going to be out on Tom Barlow and Christian Fletcher. I mean, those two signing with the way that they haven't really looked that good in some of their previous club in MLS, I don't know if Cincinnati will just magically transform these reclamation project and make them look good. But again, they do have a history in terms of doing that. I mean, I remember when they brought back Alvis Powell, a guy that seems like it's kind of a reclamation project, especially of how bad he was when he was first with the team, and he actually turns out to be pretty well. And the same with Teenage Hadabi as well. Teenage Hadabi was really bad doing his time with the Houston Dynamo. He signed with Cincinnati, and he actually turns out to look decent for depth pieces reason as well. And then last but not least, it's the backline. Can they stay healthy? This has been a problem for Cincinnati, at least in the last 2 years, where guys like Nick Hagelin, Matt Miazga, and Miles Robinson, all three of those guys have been missing times at part of the season, and that it is very important for them to stay healthy because those three center back is the rock of the Cincinnati team. If all three of those guys are healthy and they can play majority of the season, Cincinnati is going to have a chance in terms of doing a good thing because those three guys I mentioned are considered to be probably the best some of the best defender in this league, and that when this Cincinnati team is healthy, they definitely have one of the best defense in the league as well. But it's all about staying healthy, and that is going to be something that they'll definitely need and hope that there will be a turn of fortune compared to the last couple of seasons where that has not been the case, where some part of their backline has missed time. So my prediction in terms of this team, the high, I'm going to go with second in the league. The reason why I don't say first place is because I think at the end of the day, when you look at the East, the team that probably is going to finish first most likely is going to be Inter Miami because of how stacked they are. But I do think that they can definitely finish second this season. The lowest that I think they can is finishing fourth in the standings. But at the end of the day, I don't think FC Cincinnati fans really care about how the regular season is, and this is the thing about some teams that have been so good for the past couple of years and have been so consistent in the last couple of years in the regular season. While that's great to see that Cincinnati has been by far the most consistent team in the last three season in MLS. I believe they have among the highest points total in the last three season out of any MLS team so far. But it really doesn't matter the fact that you can have a good regular season. Like fans will be happy that the team has a good regular season. But it's all about what happened when you're in the playoffs. When you're in the playoffs and you can't get the job done, then there's definitely going to be some question that is going to make. And I'll revert what I said about Cincinnati in my moving forward series and say it again. I talk about this season preview. If this team can't get over the hump in these next two seasons or so, and they cannot win some silverware, there's got to be some serious question you got to say about this core and maybe some dismantling, similar to what we see with the Union does, where the Union they admitted that the core that they have, while it's been good for most of the season in terms of regular season and get them a lot of points and them regularly finishing near the top four and even the top three of the Eastern Conference, just not able to get the job done is kind of the reason why they say, well, we just got to dismantle the core. We need to try something else. We can't just do the definition of insanity of keeping this core and just running it back every single year when it just hasn't worked out. That might be the case for Cincinnati, I feel like, in 2 years, and this is why I've said earlier before. It feels like Cincinnati is in the third year of the 2018-2023 Union timeline, where they're running it back in terms of the current core. Hope that it, of course, will finally work down. And if it's the longer this doesn't work out, the more that I think Chris Albright might be thinking about looking elsewhere and maybe even dismantling the core and try to retool similar to what we saw the Union did in these last couple of years. But there you have it. That is pretty much it. Looking at Cincinnati in my season preview. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this season preview. If you're a Cincinnati fan, what do you think is the strength, the weakness, free big question, and your prediction is going to be for this team heading into this season. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.